Hi, I'm Amanda Webb, and welcome to Her Time, Her Place. This is a podcast about women stepping into their moment, owning their place, and sharing what it really took to get there. In each episode, I'll sit down with women from all walks of life to explore the turning points, the moments of doubt, the decisions that changed everything, the people who showed up, and the lessons they've carried forward. Because so many of us have been told, or have quietly told ourselves, that it's not the time. It's not the place, not yet. This podcast is all about questioning that, choosing it anyway, and discovering what's possible when we do. Let's go. Hi, I'm Amanda Webb, and welcome to Her Time, Her Place. Today, I have the lovely Kathy Rhodes joining me. Kathy is the founder of Held and Free, and you're going to hear more about that organisation today. She's also an amazing entrepreneur and a corporate escapee. Kathy, welcome.
Thank you so much, Amanda. We only met about 6 months ago, and it's hard to believe because I feel like our connection was strong and instant. And I remember making a quip to a room of about 100 people that you and I were going to be great friends. And it's turned out to be exactly the case. Thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. And let's get stuck in. What a great
Yeah.
podcast.
Well, I think the luck and joy was all mine. I was walking the dog this morning thinking about our podcast and realizing that I was like, oh my God, I've only known Kathy for right on 6 months. Like we met in February. So it has been this really quick friendship that's built, but also I'd say a hugely respectful, professional and social connection that we have as well. And everyone's going to get to know much more about you and why that connection has been so strong during this podcast. So, Kathy, I was doing a bit of prep for this today and looking at your career and background, and it's really evolved from your corporate marketing days into business strategy. Then you've decided to go out on your own. You've worked as an entrepreneur, supporting others in their purpose and career. And then you've evolved again into a social entrepreneur, which is where you are today and with Held and Free. And I know we're going to unpack that. So really, really excited about this conversation. I would love to hear from you how this journey, the Kathy Rhodes story, kind of started.
Yeah, good one. So I've never been traditional and following linear career paths or linear anything really. And I think one of the best examples of this was when I was in year 12 doing my HSC, an opportunity arose to also at the same time start my university education. So I would go to school in the morning dressed in my uniform. I would get changed in my all-girls Catholic high school bathroom and then take myself off in plain clothes to university listening to lectures and participating in tutorials. And most teenage girls I know these days couldn't think of anything worse than doubling the amount of education they have or doubling the amount of work. But that was me. And I don't say that in, a braggy way, but it's a way that just really illustrates how a little bit crazy and highly curious and ready to do anything quite bizarre I've always been. So that's probably the starting point of how I got to where I am right now.
Can I ask a question around that?
Yeah.
Who was it that recognized in you that you had this capacity to double up school and uni? How did that come about?
Yeah, and it was a combination of myself and another. And I think that is probably a theme that
Right.
runs through my life. So we were all sat down, those of us who they thought academically could handle it. We were all sat down as a group of 17-year-old girls in our
Wow.
uniforms one day, and the teacher said, I've brought you in this room because I think all of you could apply for and participate in this program. And so it was that individual recognizing me and others, but then it was up to me to go, yeah, I see myself in that. I'm going to give that a go. I'm not going to walk out and turn left and go to the canteen. I'm going to stay behind and actually ask more questions and get stuck in. So I think opportunity presented, something seen, but then the drive to actually, say yes and move forward and make a real go of it.
Yeah, amazing. Incredible to think that someone, and the school was progressive enough to buy into that as well. All girls, love that. So where does this take Kathy from there?
So I graduated with a communications degree with a specialization in both PR and social psychology. And it took me straight from the western suburbs to Bridge Street in Sydney, working for a boutique public relations consultancy that was headed up at the time by two lecturers that would run
Mm.
down the freeway to Canberra. They both lectured in communications and PR at the University of Canberra at the time. And why that mattered
Mm.
was that because of their absence, we had modern ways of working back in those days that didn't exist. So hybrid office situations, and I was really thrown in the
Mm.
deep end managing clients when the principals or the owners of that organization were not available because they were lecturing themselves. And it was at that time that I got exposure to a couple of things. One, really serious organizations. So sponsors of the programs
Mm.
of our clients included AICD, included CPA, included, big brands. And there was instantly a respect for the seriousness of that or the
Mm.
professionalism that was required. So even though it was PR, it was like serious PR, if you like, rather
Yeah.
than, FMCG or the kind of the lighter or the funner side.
Mm.
That was one experience. The other experience, which characterized my time there, is again the founder of that business at the time. She was diagnosed with cancer. And so she was having a challenge of not only keeping her
Mm.
health together, but keeping everything around her together. And at the time, which was done back then, she didn't tell anyone apart from us in the office that that was her experience. So we were keeping numb about her hair loss. We were keeping numb about the wigs. And when clients would say, "Oh, you've had your hair done," we would, know instinctively not to react to that,
Mm.
knowing the truth that sat behind it. And it was because of that, after I'd done my time, I ended
Mm.
up going to work for the Cancer Council for real as an employee because I saw what firsthand
Wow.
experience looked like. And of course, we've all been touched by cancer, haven't we? So I'd also had relatives that I'd lost, my grandfather
Yeah.
included. So it was really highly personal and also purposeful, as you
Yes.
might imagine.
That decision from uni into a consultancy with all of that agile kind of work, and you've got the
Mhm.
founders like doing their thing as well, which I love the flexibility that provided, but also that closeness that you get when you're in something that's a bit more boutique like that, facing out to your clients, supporting them, doing the consulting work, being the trusted advisor, but also being close to the team and the principals like that. So it is kind of a bit like a family for you, being in that, but also that it touched on something with one of your clients and that you then go in-house with a client. That's not unusual. But in your case, the purpose piece there for you as well,
Yeah,
driving you across to that.
was
Mm.
really, really high. So at the time, I managed a portfolio of public relations, media, and fundraising events. Some
Um,
like Australia's Biggest Morning Tea, Girls Night In, Daffodil Day, those sorts of things. So it was not uncommon for me to turn up to events and accept the oversized check, which was
yeah.
donated, or to turn up on, weather segments, promoting bits and pieces, talking to families, going to school, slip, slop, slap, the
Mm.
whole shebang. That was my world for a couple of years before I fell in love and moved to London, followed a man.
Well, there you go. So tell us what happened then. You go to London because you've been in the not-for-profit space. So heading to London, following love.
Yes, fell in love, then moved to London. And I ended up being very happy, like most Aussies in their 20s are, to kind of do any kind of work. And
Mm.
where I landed was a company called Alfred Dunhill, which belongs to the Richemont Group,
Oh.
responsible for Alfred Dunhill for men's luxury leather goods, primarily in fashion. But because it was part of the Richemont Group, like, it was also Cartier, Montblanc, Shanghai Tang. Like I lived in this world of like London Fashion Week ultimate luxury, which was pretty unique at the time. So think London Fashion Week. Jude Law, the actor, was the face of the brand at the time. And I got to work really close hand in hand with the CEO. And it was
Amazing.
at that point that I got a better understanding and appreciation for a business's finance and the way that he would communicate and the issues that were brought to him and all of the things that come with running a business at that scale and at that level.
Mm.
It was an incredible time that I'll be forever fortunate and look back and be like, yeah, wow, that was amazing.
How to land on your feet.
Yeah,
But I'm
it was,
guessing it wasn't just that.
well, I was good at what I did. So all good things must come to an end. So I returned to Australia and ended up temping, just was meant to be temporary at Zurich Financial Services, the insurance company. Now, remember, I'd just come from London where I was in the center of finances. And it was for the first time that I combined everything I'd learnt at the Cancer
Mm.
Council with everything I'd learnt about, you know, consulting, like it all just meshed together. And so I saw products differently, right? I saw
Mm.
insurance products for the people that they were ultimately helping because I'd worked with them. I'd been there. Like that was part of my history. So it didn't take long for them to say, hey, why don't you come and work for us kind of full time? We want to take this temporary thing and make it permanent. So I spent 10 years working in the financial services sector, like many of your peers, friends, podcast guests, Amanda.
Yep.
And that's the crux of the first kind of 30 years of my life.
Thinking about that shift though in the product, like you talked about realizing, didn't matter if you were selling luxury goods, leather goods to men, or working closely with female luxury items, then coming back to, I mean, I would have to say moving into financial services in marketing would have been a little bit of a come down on the product line of doing insurance and things like that. But the fact that you realized it was all about the human at the end of that anyway, it's about the customer.
Absolutely. And seeing otherwise disparate things and bringing them together,
Mm.
finding the golden thread is actually one of my superpowers that I've only come to reflect on relatively recently. That was proven many times over. So ING, ANZ,
Mm.
path, moving into another business strategy consulting firm in this strategy director role there for a number of years. What I learnt is that when you have those skills,
Mm.
they can be transferred to almost any situation as long as you say you keep the human at the
Mm.
core and the implication of what you're doing at the core. And
Yes.
that's why I was like, at one point, I was like, oh, I could make money for anyone doing anything. I want to do it for things that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And what is the thing I most enjoy? Listening to women share stories and credentials and information to make the world a better place. So it was no accident that I ended up being the thought alchemist,
Mm.
taking really clever women and what they had to share with the world and making it palatable and commercial for the audiences they wanted to reach, having been in all of those spaces. So I knew, for example, what a great pitch deck to a corporate looked like because I was the person once upon a time someone was pitching to. So I was
Yeah.
able to turn that insight into, yeah, into things that really mattered for women doing really incredible things.
Yeah. Kathy, you described before that you realized that you had obtained all of these broader range of skills, that you weren't just marketing PR, that you'd built these other business skills, the strategic skills, the entrepreneurial skills, the finance skills along in your career. When you were building all of those skills, or when you realized that you had all of those skills, did this become a driver for you to go, oh my God, like, here's my ambition. I want to go and start my own business and do Thought Alchemist?
Uh, I've actually never identified with the word ambitious. I would
Oh,
never have described myself as that. I think like so many of us in our, 40s
no.
and beyond have had late diagnosis, ADHD and autism, and I certainly fall into that category. So while it on the outside seems ambitious, for
Mm,
me, it was following another hyperfixation. It was but why? And a curiosity and a wanting to really get stuck into the things that mattered and seeing, as I said, things that didn't otherwise go together and patterns that, neurotypicals may not have seen. So it drove
mm,
me because of my curiosity. It drove me because of the way I'm wired and the people that I'm surrounded with. But I wouldn't have ever described my career as ambitious in nature.
yeah, absolutely. And today, would you describe it as ambitious?
I think our purpose through Held
Yeah.
and Free is ginormous, and
Yeah.
there's ambition attached to that, but it's not
Mm.
attached to self.
And do you think the ADHD diagnosis or understanding gives you that, oh, right, this is what's been driving me, even from the Catholic girls' school where they go, hey, you're a part of this group. We think you can double up and finish your HSC and start uni. Is there a path there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all interconnected, but I think having the late diagnosis just allows me to look back with forgiveness,
I was,
mostly.
yeah, how good is that? And also sometimes you think that other people can back off a little bit as well. around that ambition thing, because you and I have talked a bit about this. Like sometimes people do think or judge or assess those of us who are quite driven, who like to achieve and get stuff done. It is in our DNA, right? Or it is in our genetic makeup of who we are. So I think there's a really nice message there for people to think about, sometimes suspending our judgment when we do see these people out there who look like they are, hell bent on achieving stuff or doing stuff or delivering stuff. Sometimes just acknowledging that is our makeup, and it can be for whatever reason. Because I still think that's a space and a place where we can be a little bit kinder to each other. And I do think that is something that women could be a little bit kinder on with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I'm really great at making decisions. I can make them swiftly, I can make them with conviction, and I can just go.
Yeah.
And often what I'll reflect on or have that 3 a.m. lying awake anxiety around is not the decision itself, not the ambition in quotes
Mm.
that it indicates, but have I moved too fast? Have I taken people on the journey? Did my words, were they soft enough sometimes
Mm.
to be a team player? Not that I've ever not been a team player, but it's
Yep.
not, as an ambitious woman, again, in
Mm.
inverted commas, it's not that part that I've wrestled with. It's the, have I been kind and caring on the journey of
Yeah.
others around me? Because I get there faster. I get there
Yeah.
faster than most people. Someone can say a line and I can not only have finished it, but I'd be, 3 chapters ahead. And while that's a strength, all of our
Mm.
strengths and our biggest strengths cast the biggest shadows. So
Yeah.
I'm just really conscious of that, shadows
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
being.
I think that's great insight as well, because that's the thing with strengths, right? Our higher strengths, if we overplay them or if it's perceived by others that we're overplaying them comparatively, that can feel like that. I also think there's a difference between the what, the why, and the how. So when
Agreed.
you when you describe that, you're so super clear on your why, which is your purpose, and we'll talk more about that with Held and Free shortly. And so sometimes just thinking for you about the how, oh, how did that land for others? Just being mindful of that and thinking that through.
And the trickiest part about ADHD is
Mm.
the more interested and excited and invested I am, the more likely I want to interrupt you and finish your own sentences, which is a terrible trait around a boardroom or a meeting room. So, yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of learnings in all of that.
Yeah, the excitable part. It's interesting because with each of my guests, I try to write down some words beforehand that I have experienced of them that describe them. And then I'm curious as we have the conversation if those things pop up. So it's just interesting because words that I had written down about you, I had written down heartful, I had written down creative, curious, and clever.
Thank
So
you.
isn't that interesting? We're only like 15 minutes into this conversation, and those things are already there, evident in the journey and those strengths for you. Hmm.
Mm.
So, Kathy, I'm curious to know, what was the shift for you? Was there a moment when you went, you know what, I'm going to leave corporate behind and I'm going to shift to doing my own thing?
Yeah, so it was October 16 back in 2013. I had a 17-month-old baby at the time. I'd returned to work after 12 months of maternity leave, and ANZ at the time, and I imagine still does, has great maternity leave. So I came back in full force, absolutely obsessed with Laura Halbert, who was my leader or manager at the time, and the ambition, if you like, was high. I was ready to go, set all the structures up in my life behind the scenes, to kind of let my career take off again in a purposeful way. Like I was never worried or concerned about, budget responsibility or how
Mm.
many people I was leading or what P&L might look like. It was only ever about, am I making a difference? Am I being a good human? Am I having fun? Am I positively contributing to the team and the world more broadly? But come back to what I said, 16th of October in
Mm.
2013. There was a plane crash in Laos, and my 3-year-old niece, my 17-month-old nephew, and their parents, along with 47 other passengers, died that day. And
Oh,
so, as you can imagine, losing 4 members of your family in an instant isn't a typical thing to happen when you're also a recently returned mum to the workforce, carrying, multiple people in your team and big
mm.
responsibility for, one of the top 4 banks in this country.
Yeah.
So it won't surprise anyone listening to learn that I didn't last very long after that. I actually took a good chunk of time off. It was a career break
Yep.
where I got to really calibrate against what are the things that really matter. So
Yeah.
that was probably the defining moment or the shift
Yeah.
that happened, when I decided that, all in corporate wasn't really for me. And then the
Mm.
second, defining moment was that I was diagnosed with stage 3 cervical cancer in 2020, in amongst smack bang in the middle of the global pandemic. So again, there's nothing like a reminder, and grief and trauma probably
Yeah.
is another thread that runs through my life, but I see it as a blessing because I've learnt things earlier than others. I've had to allow love in. I've had to worry less
Mm.
about a LinkedIn or an Insta life and more
Mm.
about making good on the time that we have available to us, knowing it can go at any time.
Yeah. And and that's a lot to process. Like, I'm just writing furiously some notes here about 2013, that tragedy that occurs in your family, so close and personal for you to manage that tragedy, the trauma that comes with that, and the grief, and completely understandable that you would want to take a break from that. And it sounds, from what you've described, that processing of life, we get one shot at this. What does this look like? How do I want to live it? And then to have in 2020 your own personal diagnosis of cervical cancer, and we're in the pandemic as if things weren't bad enough. We're already dealing with a fairly traumatic experience and isolation. And then you've got that as well. So trauma and grief definitely have, you know, made their way into your life
Yeah,
in a
but
big
I also
way.
I see, and I said this a little bit just a minute ago, I see it as a real gift
Mm.
because I don't know, I make a joke, I'm a great funeral friend, right? Like I'm happy to go and support or when things are
Yeah.
tough. I really get it. I've been
Yeah.
there and I
Yep.
describe it as showing up in the second half. So it's so
Yep.
easy, so natural for people to rally around individuals when something first happens,
Yep.
regardless of what first thing has happened.
Yeah.
It's less likely because of human nature, and it's no one's fault, uh,
Mm.
for support to continue in the second half. So once you've been cured, or once the funeral's over, or once
Mm.
you've left a marriage, or once you've closed a business. And it's rare for us to keep wanting to support and check in on that individual. So a joke that, a good funeral friend and it'll show up in the second half. And any experience we have, regardless of our careers, our journeys,
Mm.
allows us to relate and give back to others that come after us. And I think
Yeah.
that's why it's a blessing.
Absolutely. And well, you've turned that into a blessing as well. Like, there's a choice around how you see. So there's obviously something in your nature around that. Your lived experience has so formed and transformed, I guess, how you've played your life from there. And I really love the second half reference as well. I've not heard that described that way before, but I often think about we're all there for that first stage of grief, and then that poor person. Sometimes we are that person. Just everyone gets on with their life, which we completely logically understand that people just get on and it normalizes. But for the individual, they're still sitting with that, and how lucky, fortunate, and wonderful is it that people in your life have you who doesn't forget about the second half. That's very much a Kathy Rhodes trait. I love that. So get you from there.
Well, I think that another defining moment, if I was picking a third
Yeah.
event, leads
Yep.
us actually to talking about held and free. So
Yep.
our conversation so far hasn't been linear, right? Like there's lots of
Mm.
career things that I've done, but this third point I think is really interesting. If I go back to my cancer journey, right, and it
Yep.
was crazy lonely. So if you imagine, because of it being the pandemic, there were no volunteers making cups of tea. You couldn't have any support people holding your hands. Every medical person you interacted with was like PP up to the absolute nines. Like I didn't even get to see anyone's smiles. And there were things like I remember being asked to choose the 10 people that I would have at my funeral if treatment wasn't successful. Because remember back then, there was a restriction, at least in New South Wales,
Yeah.
around who could come. But in amongst all of that, I was believed. And our New South Wales health
Mm.
system and the incredible care and the medical access we have in this country was not lost on me,
Yeah.
because everybody and everything was intended, designed, and was successful in saving my life. When I apply that kind of institutional level care and that,
Mm.
of course, we believe your life's under threat and we'll do something about it, it became an incredible, stark, awful contrast point to my best friend,
Mm,
whose life was also under threat. But it was under the threat of escaping a marriage where DV was present.
mm,
But instead of the system, right, rallying
mm.
around her, admitting her into, a facility where 3 or 4 people that had between them 30, 40 years of medical experience really wanted to preserve me. That wasn't her experience. No one said, "Kathy, we don't believe you've got cancer." Nor
Yeah.
should they, right? It was a real experience. I've got the bloods and the X-rays and things to prove it. But when it comes to other threats to our life, as was the case with my best friend, who was also a business owner at the time when she was surviving this crisis and is still a business owner, the same stuff wasn't there to support her. And it was that moment where she fell through the cracks, where she earned too much as a business owner to access some support,
Yep.
but not enough as a cash flow in a business
Mm.
to arrive into state with a child and one suitcase to keep it all together. And it's that gap that I truly believe, because of everything I'd gone through before, and that stark contrast between life under threat for medical reasons and life under threat because of another human being,
Mm.
that Held and Free was born. So
Mm.
there's no real pivotal moment more than that in my career to go, wow, we need to have
Yes.
more women in these situations. I can do that. I've got the
Yep.
skills, I've got the life experience, I've got the passion to shut down everything else I'd done before, kept the knowledge, but shut down everything else and go from a great client base and a
Mm.
steady income and having invested lots and lots and lots in a business and a brand and, all the things that come with,
Yeah.
being in business for 8 years, to turn around and just say, this is more important. That's a big deal because it's a big problem.
Yes, it's a huge deal. Also, the ability for you to see when you're in your own stuff, someone else and their stuff, and be able to parallel both of those things. And this is what I love about your curiosity and cleverness, that you're able to run that assessment, not sit there. You could, and all of us would be fine with it if you were in that, oh my God, me, my life, living my life, remaining alive, blah, blah, blah. But being able to parallel that and look at this other situation and go, hang on, if I analyze this, which is probably one of your strengths, to be able to analyze, put the heart stuff on the, back burner for a minute and analyze and go, oh my God, all of this exists for me with my scenario, but this other doesn't have a solution or doesn't have a support system in place. And then coming back to Kathy being Kathy. So what can I do about it?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. You've nailed
That's
it.
so incredibly what I know of you in these short 6 months that I've got to know you. And I haven't heard that parallel story before told
Mhm.
that way. So I think it's probably a good time to tell us all more about the birth of the Held and Free and exactly what it is that you're doing now.
Yeah, so we're only getting started. So this is a great opportunity, Amanda, for me with my marketing brain
Yes.
and my storytelling lens
Yeah.
to share some more detail with you. So entity-wise, it's two structures. There's a social enterprise side, and then the brand new, recently formed not-for-profit registered charity side. And both of those, as Held and Free, excite me no end around the impact we can make. And exclusively, we're for women in Australia who run and own businesses to survive and get through and stand with them in personal crises so that their businesses, i.e., their livelihoods,
Mm.
continue. Because it's really different if you are, in my case, remember I was a corporate
Mm.
employee when I was grieving and I could have time off. I had
Mm.
sick leave. I had the chance to talk to EAP. I had other accesses to, finances and
Mm.
other. It's very different when you, as the leader, the founder, the CEO of a business of any size, right? From the micro businesses to some of the women in my life where they're, running teams of hundreds and hundreds of people, which ultimately rely on them
Yep.
generating income, stewarding the ship, maintaining client relationships. So if you're grieving, for example, you've had a pregnancy loss or you're
Mm.
escaping DV or something else has gone awry, which is unexpected, unwanted, and sudden,
Mm.
right? You want to be able to be held in those moments. You want your livelihood to be able to continue. And it's not easy,
Mm.
right? I don't know a woman in business that feels comfortable to turn around and say, "Hey, client X, I'm going to be delayed on this because I'm crying at 3 a.m. Hey, employee, I know I need to reschedule our one on one, but I'm just so dead tired at the moment because I've got a condition that I haven't told you about and I'm battling a
Mm.
health battle privately." Like, we're asked to carry so much already as women in business.
Mm.
And then when something goes wrong, when a crisis hits,
Yeah.
that's what Held and Free is setting up to do, is to help you to know what you can do in advance to prevent it, what to do if you've, just hit a crisis, how you can replay, repackage and share your wisdom with others,
Mm.
how you can financially navigate through it, who and how you can lean on support, and to not feel so much stigma, not to feel alone, not to feel like you have to make that choice between self and your business baby, your human baby or your fur baby and your business
Mm.
baby. Because women who go into business for themselves, in my experience, are so passionate and are genuinely trying to make the world a better place. I'd love for them to be able to continue to do that if they choose.
Yeah. It's such a specific gap that you have seen in the market.
Yeah.
And I think lots of people would miss that. Unless you've been outside of corporate or you've been a, business
In and
founder, an entrepreneur, and in and out to realize that, oh my God, the support services that are there for us and present in corporate are not there when we do our own thing and work for ourselves, start a business and things like that. As much as a lot of women, as you say, they start their own business or they run their own business because they are passionate, they're skilled, they've got this gift that they want to bring to the world, totally all of that. But that support system isn't there in the same way as it is in a corporate environment. When I first left corporate, I used to say there were three things. There was only three things that I missed about not being in a corporate. I missed tech support hugely. They were my favorite people. I missed the stationery room back in the day as well. Not such a problem today. And the third thing was that if something goes wrong, health, wealth wise, that was the third thing. Where's that support system come from? And so from what you're describing, Held and Free is going to play a space there.
Absolutely. That is exactly the space that we intend to play in, because I believe those women contribute just as much to the economy as every other business.
Yeah.
Not in, like for like metrics, but, women running businesses, that's a really, like, they employ people, they serve people, they make sure that products and services land in others'
Mm.
hands. And if it goes down, it's not just her that suffers. It's a whole raft of people, a whole community, a whole
Yeah.
domino effect. So why wouldn't we try as society to keep them afloat in
Yeah.
all the ways we can to
Yeah.
allow her to move through that?
Mm.
It's a
So you
no-brainer.
talked it's a no-brainer for sure, and I love that you found there's always gaps in the market, like, because people often think, surely one day we'll run out of business ideas. We never will. There's always something, and I love this. So you said there's two parts to the business. There's the social enterprise
Mhm.
and do you wanna what are the two different parts gonna do?
Well, at the higher purpose, one's
Mm.
gonna make the money, one's gonna give it
Mhm.
away. So
Yeah.
so the social enterprise will have, products and services that people can pay for,
Yep.
and at least 50% of all profits from the social enterprise will then go directly into the foundation, which will, as a not-for-profit, generate income in and of itself. So if I focus on the not-for-profit side
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
our intention is to provide financial grants, so actual money handed
Yep.
over to women who have experienced or are experiencing crisis. Crisis defined as unexpected, unwanted, and sudden. Examples of those things include domestic and family violence, including
Mm.
coercive control, and safety around things like sextortion and anything that falls under that bucket. So,
Yep.
harm that's done to the body,
Yep.
crisis that falls out of health. So that's physical and mental health. So
Yep.
let's say there's been a diagnosis of some kind or an acute progression of something that
Mm.
already exists, or also there's mental health things at play. that require support. That would be, crisis that's happening to the body
Mm,
and the mind, or physical stuff. And then the third, which is our intention. I say this all with an asterisk back to
yep.
my financial services days, pending all sorts of compliance and approval and board endorsement and the
Yeah.
rest. But the third pillar of crisis that we really want to support financially is around kinship. So say you're a woman who's got a parent who then requires a different level of care, which means that you need to step back from your business for a short time
Yep.
to, say, for example, arrange aged care for them. So there's lots of different things that qualify in my mind,
Mhm.
pending approval,
Yep.
for support.
Yep.
And what we'd like to be able to do is to say, here, go and take this, spend it on a corporate lawyer to be able to give you great, tax structure advice. Go and get that psychologist in your corner to talk about how you're going to show up at work and
Yeah.
manage the team. Go and engage a corporate communications specialist that will help you develop the comms that you can roll out to your, stakeholders and suppliers.
Yeah.
The way that I see it working is, again, thinking about the
Yeah.
whole economy and supporting each other, is rather than that money going to that individual, that money will go for the individual to a professional services business.
Yeah. Great.
And that means that we'll pay the invoice for the lawyer, we'll pay the invoice for the counselor, we'll pay those invoices on your behalf. So then it's not
Yes.
considered any income in your business, which then could potentially
Mm.
figures. That means all sorts of implications down the road. It also guarantees for us, at least in my mind, that the support's going to the actual woman who needs it, right? It's then hopefully devoid of, in the case of domestic violence and coercive
Mm.
control, someone else in that woman's life then misappropriating those funds. So there's a few reasons why we're doing it. The upside is that, imagine if we can, and my dream is trauma informed social enterprises and B Corps being, the chosen suppliers, although we won't be having that level of discretion. Imagine if we can then support more women and more fabulous trauma-informed people to then support everyone through crisis. I just really love the uplift that would bring.
I think it's a really clever model, really smart. And the fact that the grants get women to think about the support that they really need. Quite often, they don't get it because they can't afford it or they prioritize something else. So it's not just cash going to the woman to spend. I love the fact that it's the best thing you can get right now is a divorce lawyer or get some financial advice, see a specialist, therapist, whatever the case may be, and that held and free do the payment. That also makes it easier for donors and funders as well,
Yeah, and it should
right?
also alleviate any kind of guilt, right? Because as women,
Right.
a universal truth when we're the receiver of these things is that, oh, I actually should spend that money on something else, or I don't deserve that. Whereas if I'm helping you to make the decision to say, you absolutely need to go and speak to a commercial lawyer about where your, trademarks are sitting to protect this as something else
Yeah.
falls. Yes, we should be doing any and all of those things for that.
Yeah.
And the impact from a donor perspective,
Mm.
our ability to report on it, our ability to check the before and after and have
Yep.
both factual and anecdotal. The data that I'm anticipating to come out of this, if I forecast kind of 12 to 18 months ahead, I actually think is going to be groundbreaking.
Yes. I think you have absolutely found something that is so needed and necessary, but also super worthwhile and purposeful. I was thinking back to a associate of mine during COVID time, a woman that was running her own business and had some challenges going on, and she decided to take money out of her super. And
Mm.
at the time, I was saying, "Don't do it. Like, go and get some advice before you take money out of your super to deal with." This sort of thing. And we know that during that COVID time, the government made it easier for people to get access to their super, but lots of people didn't get advice before they did so. And imagine if we could be encouraging people to get the right advice for the right purpose, because it is about business. It is about, that's your focus, is about how do you take a little pause and get the right advice to make your business a sustainable, ongoing concern.
Correct. Because for me, it's linked. Business is livelihood,
Yes.
right? If we don't help them with their livelihood and
Yeah.
also income, then they're
Mm.
poverty and everything else. So those two things in my mind are inextricably linked. But what I loved about your example there around advice is that that really speaks primarily to the social enterprise side. And what we'd like to do is to have a number of corporate partners to help us build out
Yes.
fabulous business-centric resources. What does coercive control look
Mm.
like inside business ownership structure? How can we prevent it through something as simple as the right account structure from the outset?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many aspects of a woman in business who would benefit from great advice to prevent the loss of
Mm.
livelihood when crisis hits.
Yeah.
So I can't stop her from getting sick. I can't stop her
Yeah.
from some of these other things. But when she's sick, right, she
Mm.
can have access to these policies or these financial structures or these comms crisis plan. She could have done that when she was healthy and well and in anticipation of something going wrong on that one day.
Mm.
Very much speaks to my insurance background. Imagine if we could prevent the financial hit of a crisis on a business through education.
Yeah.
That's what social enterprise is about. And also for me, it's the community side where a woman in this situation doesn't need to feel shame and doesn't need to feel isolated.
Yeah.
Who's a great person to recommend? Here's who we've worked with. Here's whose
Mm.
recommendations. Here's a published book which tells stories of women who
Mm.
come through this and what they wish they'd learned. I think the products and services side of the social enterprise side is so expansive, and everything I've mentioned today about it will outlive me by a long way. I will help women who I never meet, women who will never know my name. And I love that so much. I really think if I forecast 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 years from now, assuming the planet survives,
Yep.
this stuff could make a real difference.
I think it absolutely will make a real difference. I love the social enterprise and how that is going to operate. So, as you said, a lot of other women-led businesses can get involved with the social enterprise. Great partnerships to be had there. There's also a lot of services and businesses out there doing these things, but they're all disparate. Like we've got narrow and deep people that do these things. But what I'm hearing from you is it's kind of like this umbrella that Held and Free will go, you know what, there's so much stuff out there, but it is hard to navigate to find all the right places. And I know that from my own experience with Dress for Success, as example. Dress for Success plays a part in our journey to support women, but there are all these other organizations as well that play a part in different ways. And so your ability to go, what are all the services and the range of things that already exist without, I presume, there's no desire to start duplicating any of that, going, did you know, here's a book, here's a reference, here's a resource, here's a person, all of that packaged together. The other thing I love about the two components, but the concept of Held and Free, is the credibility that you bring to it.
Oh, thank you.
So you have all of these skills, experience to be running both sides of this business, and you have this lived experience all wrapped around it, and generosity, hope with a future focus. You are so the woman that is supposed to be bringing this to the market. And I think that's a really strong and powerful sell, not as a, maybe it sounds a bit salesy, but it's such a good proposition for you with a brand new coming to market social enterprise and charity. I just think that is amazing and wish you so much luck with this. I think it is absolutely something that the market needs, and I think it will certainly take off. Kathy, thank you so much for sharing, because I'm curious about Held and Free and all it's doing. I'm sure others are as well. But I want to just check in. The journey you've been on, like, it's been high highs, low lows, just so much in all of that. Who have been the people along the journey who have supported you to get you where you are today?
Oh, it has to be women, 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 women. I'll call out one in particular, and I mentioned her earlier in this episode, and her name's Laura Harbert. So she and I met back in the day where she'd recruited me, headhunted me to come in and work for her at ING. She's now gone on to be the Chief Marketing Officer, the CMO at Allianz Australia. Now, she embodies everything I love about a woman who's a leader and the ultimate supporter. She had my back. She sat through tears. She pep talked at the right time. She was completely devoid of what I describe as 1990s shoulder pad energy, where you have to be at all times. And yet She dressed sharply and held her own and was quick-witted and could, hold her own in any boardroom at any time on any subject. She epitomized for me professionalism and warmth, but she was also really boundaried. So she
Mm.
would not answer emails after hours. She would leave on time, and she was such a good role model. Almost every conversation I had with her, and I mean, I reported to her on and off many times, I kind of follow her anywhere. So she, for me, would probably be the one person who I think
Mm.
took a career that was going well and just like, stepped in at the right time. And I don't think I'd ever would have gotten anywhere without her. So I'd like to give her a little shout out. Um, but, there's another story that comes to mind. I was going to an awards ceremony in Melbourne a few years ago, completely decked out in colours and patty, hair and makeup done, looking all as fun
Fabulous.
as one can at the time. And I was walking across the road and a bird did its business on me. Got my hair, got my velvets,
No.
and I was walking with 4 friends, right? 4 female colleagues, acquaintances, peers, like there was this gaggle of us. 1 froze, 2 together ran across to a convenience store, bought some wet wipes, came back and were like patting me down and trying to fix it for me. And the 4th woman there took footage and took photos for her Insta. And the last time I checked, that woman had 32,000 followers on Insta, and she was making fun of me to that community for being pooped on. And I'm like, the women who get the wipes are the women that have always got me through. So be a
Wow.
woman who gets the wipes.
Be the woman. And thank God there was 2 of them, 50%. My God. But we need, more wipe getters.
Right? Like that's the women, right? Like they can't
Wow.
give you an honor roll of all the time, but it's when you show up in those
Yes.
micro moments, unglamorous, that's genuinely helpful. Every
Mm.
conversation, every pause, every
Yeah.
introduction, every pay rise, like you name it. There's so many, but it's always been the women
Mm.
that
Yep.
I reflect on, always been the women.
Yeah. That's a beautiful journey that you have had. Um, well, except for the pooping bird. I did like the reference to the pooping bird and the gaggle of women. That was kind of put that together.
Murder on the
So,
dance. That's what we
yeah.
were on. Bunch of-
So, Kathy, this has been such a great conversation. I just am so loving the great, big, huge learning curve I am on with this podcast because I'm learning so much along the way about amazing women bringing and contributing, as you said, so much to the world. And women do this. So, thank you for sharing your story with us. I am keen to hear, is there a piece of wisdom or advice that you want to share with those listening based on your journey?
I think rather than being my journey, it's my observation.
Mm.
So there's a keynote I've delivered called K stands for kaleidoscope. And the reason I gave that presentation was because so often, right? Remember, for 8 years,
Mm.
I worked with outwardly facing the most confident, credentialed, incredible, genuinely leading thought women, right? And behind the scenes, and I was so privileged to be able to get to work with them one on one and to see all of their glory and
Mm.
all of their insecurities. And even when they had multiple PhDs, and this is fact, right? They would still doubt that they were the best person or the person that could command main stage or opening keynote or, the highest prices.
Mm.
And I'd constantly remind them that they, like me, like you, like all your listeners, every little fragment of their career, their life experience, their choices comes together as little fragments and makes a
Mm.
unique kaleidoscope image. And no one person can replicate the next. And it's the sum of all of those parts in all of its beautiful
Mm.
slithered glory that makes a woman's contribution and her in and of herself worthy. That's what I'd like to leave the audience with.
I love that. K stands for kaleidoscope. Almost sounds like the name for this episode, but there are so many options. And I'm just thinking about all the colors of the spectrum. And you are absolutely right. How do we miss the fact that each and every one of us is this unique, special person? Yep.
Yeah,
We We all are. And if we add the imperfect uniqueness, stop having this expectation of perfection, imagine how much easier that would be as well. So I do really love that K stands for kaleidoscope and getting women to think about that. I know that this has been a big part of your journey. Kathy Rhodes, can I say a very big thank you to you for our conversation today? I hope you've enjoyed the journey we've been on.
I've loved it, Amanda, and I cannot wait for all the listeners to work out in time how you're going to be working and contributing to Held and Free as well, because there's a whole episode we could do just on that alone. That's exciting.
Yes. To be coming soon. So big thanks to Kathy and just to everyone else out there. Thanks for joining us again today for another episode of Her Time, Her Place. As you know, we drop an episode every Friday. So next Friday, you'll hear from another fabulous woman like Kathy and hear about her story of time and place and what she is seeing, finding and feeling. For today, thanks. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.